Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our revision live tonight after Christmas and New Year. We want to welcome you back. Hope you've had a really nice festive break. Just a reminder, this is an interactive session, so we really encourage comments, answers in the chat box this evening. You are able to watch this back on playback as well as all of our other previous revision blasts that we've done. Tonight's session is going to be on the tricky parts of attachment. Mel, did you want to add anything? Don't think your mic's on, Mel.
Yeah, there we go. Good to go. I think more interaction, the better. There's a lot of you on tonight, which is really positive. So as many answers as we can get in, then that would be great. I can see some of my students in there now.
Perfect. All right, well, let's get started. I'm going to start this evening with our first activity. It's called a detail detective. So for this one, we've got three key terms on the left-hand side of the screen here, and your job is to improve the detail in the descriptions that you can see in the white box next to them. So we've got interactional synchrony, mirroring another. So I want to know, how can you add detail to that? How can you add to that definition? Reciprocity, responding in a similar or non-similar way, and then the continuity hypothesis, early attachments of templates. So to make this easy for the chat box, if we can just start with the first one. So we're going to say interactional synchrony is the first one we're going to start with. So with mirroring another, how can we add to that to add some description to it? Let's say this was a 2 or 3 marker. How do we add detail to that to make sure that we get full marks, guys? So what else can we say about interactional synchrony other than mirroring another? So examples you might want to think about. So we've got some answers coming through. Yep. So that's definitely how they tested it. Yeah, facial expressions, hand gestures. Yeah, Harmon, when two people coordinate their behaviours and actions, imitation of caregiver from infant. Yep. Any other answers? Any other improvements, details on mirroring another that we can think of? Yeah, Liana, well done. Meltzoff and Moore is definitely a key study here, and one that we're going to actually elaborate more on in some activities this evening. Yeah, Hannah, well done. Where caregivers and the infants reflect both the actions but also the emotions, really good. Yeah, of the other in a coordinated way. Imitation, yeah, is a really good word to use here to elaborate on that mirroring aspect. Yeah, maybe moving at the same time. Angela, well done. Interaction is mirrored like a dance. That's really good description. Yeah, well done. Let's have a look at how we would elaborate reciprocity then, because obviously interactional synchrony and reciprocity come hand in hand under the same topic here with caregiver infant interactions. How can we make sure we differentiate reciprocity from interactional synchrony then? So reciprocity. Excellent. Well done. It's got some really good answers there for reciprocity. So I'm just going to read some of them out. So we've got, yeah, this backwards and forwards kind of non-verbal, we want to say, non-verbal conversation between infant and caregiver. So it is, yeah, Natasha, like you say, this kind of idea of turn taking, if you like. So we've got whose need when a caregiver or infant does an action and the other person does an action in reaction to it. Yeah. And I think the key thing here is that unlike interactional synchrony, reciprocity doesn't have to be an exact imitation. Okay, so it's responding absolutely like a non-verbal dance, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an imitation of what the caregiver is doing. So a couple of you have noticed that there in your description, so really well done for that. Let's have a look at continuity hypotheses then. Early attachments are templates. So how might we elaborate that? Can we give an example from an early attachment, how that might look later on, for example? Yeah, well done. We've got a study here. Someone's put Briselton's actually a really nice study to use there for reciprocity. And it's not a key study, Briselton, but it is in some of the textbooks. So it's a nice one to kind of quote for reciprocity if you do have it, but not to worry if you don't have that one. So continuity hypothesis doesn't come under the same topic as caregiver-infant interactions. So can anybody think how we might elaborate that? I won't give the topic away. Rach, the internal working model, same patterns occurring in later relationships. Yes, so if you like, that early attachment really does affect future relationships. Yeah, well done. You guys have quoted future relationships then. Yeah, acts as a blueprint for later relationships. So let's have a look at that first one then that we did, interactional synchrony. We might elaborate that by saying when the infant can imitate, if you like, facial and body movements, and they're synchronized, including imitating emotions as well as behaviors. And I think a couple of you quoted the emotions and behaviors. That's really, really good and effective. Let's look at the next one then, reciprocity. So we've got responding in a similar, non-similar way. So when the actions of one partner elicit a response from the other. So again, a lot of you quoted this turn taking, really good. It is a non-verbal dance between the caregiver and the infant. So well done, those of you that quoted that. And then we've got our continuity hypotheses. So early attachments are templates. Yeah, so the attachment type we develop in childhood will continue, hence continuity hypothesis, into later relationships in adulthood. And that could be friendships or romantic relationships, remember, okay? Excellent. Yes, some of you are quoting some of the theories where you might use this. Bowlby is definitely one of those theorists where we might use the continuity hypothesis. Excellent. Well done. Okay, let's have a look at our next game. I think some of you are going to be familiar with this, our chili quiz. So you're going to have 30 seconds to answer 3 questions, and we've got them rated in level of difficulty by the chili. So mild will be, if you like, the easier one, going all the way through to hot, which is a more challenging question, if you like. So let's see how many of you can get all 3 done. So I'm going to ask you to input all 3 answers at the same time as opposed to doing them individually in the chat box tonight. So you've got a full 30 seconds to try and write all 3 answers down. And then when the 30 seconds is up, we'll ask you to input your answers into the chat box, guys. So time starts now. That was quite a quick time, wasn't it? 30 seconds to get all answers done. But I can see quite a lot of you have put down number 1, which is interactional synchrony, which is correct. So number 2 isn't Bowlby's theory, okay? It is actual fact Hazen and Schaefer's study. This is the last study right at the end of the spec of attachment. And then for number 3, we've got explain, which is our, most challenging question here. Explain how the internal working model affects later childhood and adult relationships. And here what we've done is given an example and really encourage you to do that with key terms in the exam to demonstrate that depth of knowledge. So we know that the internal working model relates to a person's expectations about relationships. So here we've got our example. So we can say a child who has a bad experience in the first attachment may then go on to struggle to form relationships or maybe not behave appropriately in them as an adult, if you like, okay? I'm just reading some of your answers that have come through here. Yes, Martha, well done. Yeah, the second question is the love quiz study by Hazen and Schaefer. Well done. And Amelia, yeah, 3 forms framework for them. Yeah, absolutely well done. Okay, we're going to move on to the next activity now, where Mel's going to take over for a multiple choice quiz.
Okay, guys, so if you've done quite a few of these sessions with us now, you'll probably be quite used to this multiple choice style quiz. And although it seems quite straightforward, I think, on the outside of it, these are the type of questions that you're going to get in the exam that can really throw you off. So let's start with this first one. According to Bowlby's maternal deprivation theory, which of the options would be correct? Is it that physical separation is harmful? That would be A. B. Emotional separation is harmful. C. Forming an attachment with the father in the critical periods prevents long-term effects. Or D. Both physical and emotional separation are harmful. What are we focusing on here? And I think the trick with this question is to really look at what is the focus of Bowlby's research. Okay, we've got quite a few coming through for D. We're saying both physical and emotional separation are harmful. Let's have a little look at the answer. We'll talk through this one a little bit and just see what we've got down for this one. Okay, good. So I think maybe the minority of you went for B here. Now I just want to touch on this because we sort of preempted that this was going to happen. I think, yeah, you would be correct in the instance of saying that both physical and emotional separation is harmful. But Bowlby's real focus of his maternal deprivation theory was to look at the emotional separation of humans and sort of how that can impact and harm people. I wonder whether anyone could take this a little bit further and just give us some examples of how this emotional separation might be harmful. So emotional separation from the mother. Yeah, I've got a few D's, a few B's, a few A's. And I think it makes sense because, yeah, there are one or two characteristics that we can touch on. You know, both physical characteristics might change, but the focus being more on emotional. What are the emotional separation impacts? Okay, so we've got struggling with future parenting. We could talk about that one. Yeah, that might be an emotion. You might struggle to connect with your own child when you're older. Um, Lydia, well done. You said B, guys. You are up. Affectionless psychopathy. Yes, we could talk about that one as well with the juvenile thief study. That would be good. Separation anxiety. Good. There's some really good ones coming through. Low IQ, delayed intellectual disability, aggression. All of these are really, really good examples of emotional separation. So let's move on to the next one. See whether we can get more getting this right. Okay, so remaining orphan studies demonstrate which of the following? Now, really think about this before you jump in with your answer. Is it A, that long-term consequences are severe and they're long-lasting? B, the importance of being adopted after 6 months. So it demonstrates the importance of being adopted after the 6-month period. C, affectionless psychopathy as a long-term effect. So this is something that came from Romanian orphan studies. Or is it D, that long-term consequences aren't actually as severe as what Bowlby outlined in his critical periods? Another really, really difficult one, this one. We've got an A, B, an A, and a D. Okay, good. This is indicating how difficult it can be. I can see a few more coming through now. D, C, A, D. Yeah, I think everyone has gone for a majority of every answer there. Let's see what the correct answer is here. Well done, good. I think we actually maybe have majority D, maybe they swung it a little bit. But yeah, this one here, it's really important to note that one of the things that came from the Romanian orphan studies was demonstrated that actually the long-term consequences that Bowlby suggested, some of the ones that you guys have just typed in the chat box, you know, they might not actually be as severe as what we think they might become of with the critical period, particularly depending on what stage of the critical period you become adopted. Also, you can think about this difference between privation and deprivation there as well. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so in psychology, on your assessment, when we talk about institutionalization, what are we referring to? Is it A, nursery, B, daycare, C, orphanage, or D, the adoption process? Molly, yeah, that's a good point to bring in there. So the idea that we can change it to more of a sensitive period and how researchers have expanded it up and changed it to more about 5 years of age. Lovely. Okay, I think, don't want to jinx it, but I think we've got a full house here. Should we have a little look at the answer? Perfect. We've got orphanage. So that one would be correct there. Well done. Lots of lovely answers. Nice, easy one. So we won't talk through that one, I think. And the next one, final one. Okay, so according to the results of research into the effects of institutionalization, What have we got here? So A, consequences are less severe than once thought. B, consequences are severe with most children experiencing long-term consequences. C, recovery is not possible in physical development. And D, children in institutional care are healthy as long as they have good physical care. Really think about this one. Try and get rid of the ones that you think, well, it can't be that one. That's always a good way to think around it. Get rid of any where you think that definitely cannot be right. And try to think about some of the previous questions we've just done. A lot of you are going for B's and D's, but just have a little think back to the question before last. It's a very similar way of asking you a similar question, just the opposite way round. Okay, good. We're starting to see some of these answers coming through now. So A's and B's predominantly. We've got a B or D in there. Give you 10 more seconds to get a few more answers in. Okay, good. I think generally it looks like once we've said that about thinking about the question in a different context or a different way of wording, let's see what the answer is. What answer we got here? Perfect. And it's exactly what we've just spoken about there. The idea that consequences maybe of institutionalization may be less severe than what we originally thought and what maybe Bowlby's research originally indicated. And I can see the majority of you there are getting that one correct. So this is where we talk about really reading the question and getting rid of the ones that we know aren't correct. Okay, so I think we are going to move on to our next activity now with Laura, which is Answer Doctor.
We are. I'm just going to add to that, Mel. I hope you don't mind. But with what Bowlby stated, I just want to remind you guys that with this critical period, if you're trying to link that to Bowlby, Bowlby stated with his critical period that if a child is not able to form an attachment in the critical period, that they're going to be damaged for life. And I think that's the key point there is that Bowlby said, you know, if they can't form attachment within this time period, they're going to be damaged for life, you know, on all facets, socially, emotionally, physically, cognitively, everything. And obviously, this later research in the specification for attachment kind of contradicts that. So again, it's nice to kind of make those kind of connections between the spec because you can kind of recycle theories and use them to kind of contradict other theories within the specification. So that's just really handy to kind of be mindful of. Okay, so the answer doctor, we haven't played this one yet, so let's explain. So we've got a question here, a 4-marker. Explain what is meant by institutionalization. Refer to attachment research in your answer. So what we're going to do is we're going to present you with a student response to this question, and the response is not perfect, okay, just to say. So what I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you the student response in a moment, and you're going to try and decide what treatment should the answer doctor prescribe to improve the answer. So in other words, how can we improve this answer to make sure it really gets 4 marks? So let's have a look at the student response here. Institutionalization is when a child lives in an institutional setting away from their family long term. A study which demonstrates this is by Rutter, who studied Romanian orphans. Now we can see that's probably not going to get 4 marks, okay? It's very basic. It doesn't really delve into any detail or elaboration at all. So I would like to know from you guys, how could we improve that? Okay, what are we going to prescribe? What are we going to advise this student in terms of how they can improve it? Yes, some of you have asked for Bowlby's critical period, asking how long was the period, up to 2.5 years. Well done, Liana. Yeah, so Molly, you said talk about orphanages. We can definitely talk about orphanages here. And some of you are saying, okay, what are the findings of Rutter? Yeah, really well done. So a study that demonstrates institutionalization is Rutter, but nothing else is said about it. Well, actually, how does it demonstrate institutionalization? So can anybody remember what Rutter's finding presented? So let's have a look. Yeah, maybe the effects of institutionalization from Rutter's study. So yeah, we've got physical effects, definitely the fact that the Romanian orphans lagged behind in terms of comparing them to the control group, which is the British counterparts, physically and mentally. Well done, Molly May. Yeah, and Kaylin, well done, disinhibited attachment. So let's have a look at how we've kind of analysed this answer then on the next slide. So here they've put institutional setting, and some of you have obviously realised that institutional setting, they actually need to give an example of that. And a lot of you have obviously recognised, as we've done with the previous questions, they could have said orphanages as an example here. Okay, so that's kind of the first one on the next slide. On the next slide, our next kind of prescription, if you like, for the answer is obviously, as you guys have rightly identified, Rutter's findings. So Rutter investigated the effects of institutionalization and found children had disinhibited attachments, which a lot of you have already quoted, so really well done on remembering that, but also problems with peer relations. And obviously there are multiple other kind of effects from institutionalization. Some of you have put in poor IQ, intellectual development, for example, so that's perfect. Let's have a look at our full answer here, our 4-marker prescribed better answer. So we've got here, let's read this out. Institutionalization is when a child lives in an institution such as an orphanage or a children's home, you could have also said, and often results in the child having impaired functions away from their family long term. A study which demonstrates this is by Rutter, who investigated the effects of institutionalization and found that children had disinhibited attachments and problems with peer relations. So you can see they're more likely to get full marks here for this answer in comparison to their very brief basic answer at the start there. And so many of you have recognised that there, so really well done for doing that. Okay, so we're going to move on to 10-second countdown now with Mel.
Okay, so again, another activity that some of you may be quite familiar with now if you've been joining us across the multiple weeks we've been doing these sessions. The timer does go quite fast on this, so you're going to see a question which comes up, and then you've got 10 seconds to provide some answers in the answer box. So for this one, we're not after a lot of detail, maybe just some trigger words that you're able to get in within that 10 seconds allowance. So we have a little look at the first question. So the timer won't start until we've read it out. So according to Hazen and Shaver's study, a secure attachments from childhood will result in what type of romantic relationship as an adult? Now, we're not necessarily looking for specific words here. We're looking at some ideas, any percentages, any facts, any figures, anything you know about this, pop it in the chat box. Off you go.
Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
Okay, well done to those who managed to get an answer into the chat box within that quick time. I can see this word secure coming up quite a lot. We've got some expansion on what that looks like. So loving, healthy, long-lasting, longer-lasting relationships. Yes, that was one, Rachel Armstrong, I was looking for, about lower divorce rate. Should we have a little look what we've got down for this one? Excellent. So you should be able to see some reflections of some of your answers in here, guys. So exactly that. We're talking about this continuation from what is happening in childhood to how they then go on to develop as an adult in their own romantic relationships. It's worth saying here that, remember, for effects of future relationships, we're looking at things like childhood relationships, we're looking at romantic relationships, we're also looking at relationships with their own children. And this one focuses particularly on the romantic relationship. So secure, stable and loving. And this is a great fact to get in. According to Hazen and Shaver, there was only a 6% divorce rate of those who had had this secure childhood when they were younger. So if you haven't got that one, it might be worth writing it down somewhere if you've got a pen and paper in front of you. Okay, let's have a little look at the next one. So according to Hazen and Shaver's study, an insecure resistant attachment from childhood will result in what type of romantic relationship as an adult? Think of that word resistance. Off you go.
Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
Okay, so 10 seconds is up. Here we go. A whole wealth of answers have popped in now. That's perfect. I think From what I can see on my chat box, it looks like music mashups came through first with the overly clingy. I've got a lot of people saying clingy. Yeah, avoid just repeating the attachment type that we see in the childhood. So don't just say the word secure and insecure resistance again, because we need to know what does that actually look like. Let's have a little look at some answers we've got down on the screen. Good. Okay, so we've got obsessive, the idea that they might be more emotional. They might have emotional highs, but then also become very, very low as well. This one, 10% divorce rate, so slightly higher. So it's not a huge divorce rate, but what we've got here is this idea of, if you think of insecure, resistant children and how we call them, tend to be like clingy monkeys, and they're sort of not sure what they want. They want the attention, they don't want the attention. It's similar reflected in the romantic relationship. So they're very emotional. They can be quite high. They can be quite low. Let me just have a little look at some more answers that have come through. So issues with trust. Yeah, that would be a brilliant one to get in. Worried that they're not loved in relationships. Yeah, so again, this distrust towards the partner. They're very unstable. Some really, really good words and some good descriptions you've got in here, guys. Again, avoid just repeating the attachment type as a child and really try and explore what does that look like. Okay, let's have a little look at the last one of this round. So according to Hayes and Shaver's study, again, this final one, an insecure avoidance attachment this time. What are we looking for here? I won't read the whole thing out. Insecure avoidance. So romantic
Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
Okay, good. So some really fast answers coming in that time. Well done. Quick typing. Let's have a little look at what we've got, and then I'll read through some of the ones we've got in the chat box. So yeah, again, just think about what some of those characteristics that Mary Ainsworth used with the strange situation to determine insecure avoidance. You know, these are the children who essentially they don't want that closeness. They're not bothered about being close to the primary caregiver. And we see that then when they progress to the romantic relationships as well. So this is why we've got this fear of intimacy, that they're not bothered about necessarily getting close and physical with a partner. They fear it almost. You've got some repetition as well with the insecure resistance. So we've still got this emotional high and low. Divorce rate actually being the highest with the insecure avoidance attachment. Maybe that's the idea that they're struggling with the intimacy side of the romantic relationship. So some really lovely ideas coming into the chat box. And I just want to say well done, because we are still quite a way away from your exam. So the fact you've still got this fresh is really good, guys. Okay, stick with us for this last activity. We've just got one more to go with Laura, which is chains of analysis.
Excellent, well done. So we've got these scrambled sentences which are going to be on the screen next, and it's your job to rearrange them to form a chain of analysis that kind of is coherent and makes sense. Okay, so really be thinking about our tutor to you kind of, you know, Whopper burger paragraphs, if you like. Okay, so for our chain of analysis, they're all numbered. So we've got 5 sentences on the next screen, and it will be your job to renumber them. Okay, so you're going to reorder them. So we just want numbers in the chat box. Okay, so they're not in the right order at the moment. So I'm not going to read all of these out. I'll read them out at the end. So have a read of all of the statements. Some of them are quite lengthy, and think, okay, well, how am I going to start this analysis? Okay, so how would you start an evaluation point? What should that really look like? And what should you have in the middle in order? And then how should an evaluation point end? What should it sound like at the end? Okay, so again, put the numbers in the correct order that you think they go in. Let's see who gets in first. Okay, so a lot of us are identifying that number 5 is the correct one to start, which you are correct in saying that, but we haven't got the correct one next. So it's not 1, it's not 3. Sorry, it is 3 rather. My bad. So I think Yazin, you got in first there, and I think Yazin's actually got all of the correct answers there. So it's 5, 3, 1, 4, and 2. So I think Hickey, you got it correct as well there in the chat box. Really well done. And there's so many going through. I can't see who else has got all of the correct answers. I think a couple of you have got the correct answers there. And I think, yeah, you know, there's some leniency there, obviously, especially with the second and third statements, 3 and 1. So I think let's have a look at the correct answers, and we're going to read this through all together now just to see how it makes sense. So we've obviously got our opening statement here. We're saying to the examiner, I'm now evaluating. So we're saying a weakness. So, weakness of the research, what are we evaluating into the effects of early attachments on childhood and adult relationships, is, it can be argued, to be simplistic. There are other factors that also play a part. So, let's elaborate on that. What are the other factors? This is why 3 comes next. Other factors such as changes produced by the transition to parenthood, the number and nature of life events and counselling or treatment for mental disorders can also impact an adult attachment style. And here we've got our evidence. So fine if you don't have this particular study, but if you find this useful, you might want to take it down or play it on playback. So we've got Alexandrov, 2005, found insecurely attached wives who married securely attached men had much greater relationship satisfaction than those married to insecurely attached men, which suggests a negative internal working model only translates into an insecure relationship if they don't have a secure partner to show them the ropes, if you like. So this means that if you've had a poor relationship as a child, you can still have good, healthy, secure relationships as an adult and with your own children if these other factors are present. So how are we going to tell this or end it? Well, in conclusion, we're saying the effects of early relationships on adult relationships are more complex than the first initial internal working model framework, challenging the notion of the continuity hypotheses. Okay, so that would be a full evaluation point there. So well done, those of you that got the correct analysis there. Excellent. So that concludes our tricky parts for our attachment topic this evening. You've all done really, really well with the answers that have come through this evening. I think next week, our next one is going to be on psychopathology tricky parts. And again, it'll be the same day, same time. Don't forget that these are on playback on YouTube, so you can watch these back. And again, you can watch back all of the other previous revision blasts we've done if you find these useful. Okay, guys. So hopefully we'll see you all again next Tuesday. Well done, everyone. Thank you.
Well done, guys. Thank you.